So a table, no matter what type of function is, to graph it, a table never fails. So it's always good to know how to use a table. So that's why we're going to use this first. So for any quadratic function, a table will always work to graph. And a quadratic function is when the highest exponent or the highest power is a 2. So if we have a power of 2 in the equation and that's the highest power, it is a quadratic function. So it's going to have the shape of a parabola, which is kind of a U. So you're going to see what that's going to look like here as we get into it. So the first thing we're going to do, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is we're going to create a table, then plug in X and solve for Y. Okay, and then we're going to do a nice big table so that we have room to plug in.
We can't see anything you did.
Oh. You're right. Okay, let me close it and open it up again. My overhead just does not want to work today. Let's see. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. Let me give you guys a second to get caught up. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our nice big table. We're going to do 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 lines down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then we'll do a line 2 from the right, and then 2 from the left. Okay, so we have an x value. So if we plug in our x, we can solve and find y. So wherever there's an x, go ahead and use parentheses. And in this case, first we're going to use -2 for x. So we're going to put in -2, and then x is squared. So -2 to the second power plus x, which is still -2, minus 2. So anywhere there was an x, I substituted -2. And then I'm just going to simplify. So -2 squared, -2 times -2, that's 4, plus -2 minus 2. So 4 plus a -2 is just 4 minus 2. So that would be 2. And then 2 minus 2, that's 0. So this point would be -2, 0. And then now x is -1. So we're going to plug in -1 anywhere there was an x. So x squared, so -1 squared plus x, which is -1, minus 2.
Can you slow down a little?
Mm-hmm. So then once we plug in our x, all we're going to do is just go through and simplify. So -1 squared, that's -1 times -1. So that gives us +1. And then we have plus a -1. So that's just -1 and then -2. And then we simplify again. So 1 minus 1, that's 0. And then 0 minus 2, that would just be -2. So this point, now we're going to put our x and our y together. So the x was -1. And then we solved to find y, which came out to -2. Any questions so far? Okay, so we just continue the pattern. So we're going to plug in now 0 for x. So we have 0 squared plus x, which is 0 minus 2. 0 squared, that's just 0, plus 0 minus 2. So this is also -2. Then we make our point. So we put our x first, which is 0, and then our y, which is -2. So for the whole table, you're just using the same equation. Then x is 1, so we're going to plug in 1 squared plus 1 minus 2. 1 squared is 1, 1 plus 1 minus 2. 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 minus 2 is 0. We put our x value and our y value together to get 1, 0. So make sure to put your x first and then your y. And then x is 2, so we plug in 2. 2 squared plus 2 minus 2. So 2 squared is 4 plus 2 minus 2. 4 plus 2 is 6. 6 minus 2 is 4. Then we write it as a point. So we put our x first, which was 2, and then our y, which was 4. And then our second step is we're going to plot the points from the table. So on your assignment, oh, it froze again, darn. Oh, I'm gonna have to unplug it and do it again. There we go. Okay, so on your assignment, you'll be given a graph, but for our notes, we're going to have to sketch a little graph. So we need it to go up to 4. Go down here. There's our x-axis and our y-axis. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so then I'm going to zoom out a little bit so we can see our whole table. So the first point is we are going to graph -2, 0. So x was -2 and y was 0. There's our first point. Then our next point was -1, -2. And then our third point was 0, -2. And then 1, 0. And the last point was 2, 4. And then this is what the graph of a quadratic function looks like. This is called a parabola. And that's what your graphs are going to look like this unit, since we're doing quadratics. Okay, and then once you graph that, go ahead and open up your workbook. We're going to be on page 94, graphing quadratic functions with a table. All right, so this is page 94. Okay, so I gave you the table with the x values. So now we just have to plug them in and solve for y. So first we're going to start with x is -4. So anywhere there's an x, I'm going to substitute in -4. So this would be -4 squared plus 4 times x, but in this case, x is -4 plus 3. So -4 squared is 16. 4 times -4 is -16 plus 3. And then 16 minus 16 is 0. 0 plus 3 is 3. So our point would be -4, 3. Any questions how I got -4, 3? Okay, so then now we're just going to plug in -3. -3 squared plus 4 times x, which is -3 plus 3. -3 squared is 9. 4 times -3 is -12 plus 3. So 9 minus 12, that's -3. -3 plus 3 is 0. So our point would be -3, 0. And then -2 squared plus 4 times -2 plus 3. Negative 2 squared is 4. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8 plus 3. 4 minus 8 is negative 4. Negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1. So our point would be negative 2, negative 1. And then negative 1 squared plus 4 times negative 1 plus 3. Negative 1 squared is 1. 4 times negative 1 is negative 4 plus 3. 1 minus 4 is negative 3. Negative 3 plus 3 is 0. So our point would be negative 1, 0. Lastly, we have 0. So we're going to do 0 squared plus 4 times 0 plus 3. 0 plus 0 plus 3 is 3. This one's 0, 3. Okay, and then we just have to go ahead and graph these points. So negative 4, 3, negative 3, 0, negative 2, negative 1, negative 1, 0, and 0, 3. And there's our parabola. So every time you graph, it should look like this. Sometimes we may make a calculation error. And if we had a point like down here, we would know, oh, I must have done something wrong. So then you would want to go back and recalculate that y value, because every time it should look just like this. If we fold it in half, it should be right on top of each other. So there, if you draw a line down here, it's a reflection. The right side is a reflection of the left side. Okay, and then for number 2, I just saw my notes before. Let's just go ahead and do the work over here so we have more space. So 2x squared, but first we're going to do x is 4. Two times negative 4 squared plus 8 times x, which is negative 4, plus 5. So we need to follow our order of operations. So we want to do the parentheses and the exponents first. So negative 4 squared would be 16 times 2. So this is going to be 32. And then 8 times negative 4 is negative 32 plus 5. So 32 minus 32 is 0. 0 plus 5 is 5. So this
Is it possible you could scoot it over a little bit more?
Yes.
Thank you.
And then now we're going to plug in x is negative 3. So let's do 2 times negative 3 squared plus 8 times negative 3 plus 5. So parentheses and exponents. So we want to do the negative 3 squared, which is 9, and then multiply by our 2. So that would be 18. 8 times negative 3 is negative 24 plus 5. And then 18 minus 24, that's negative 6. Negative 6 plus 5 is negative 1. So when x is negative 3, y is negative 1. So our point is negative 3, negative 1.
Can you move it up a little bit, please?
Like this?
Yes, I want to see that page.
Okay. And then x is -2. So we're going to do 2 times -2 squared plus 8 times -2 plus 5. So notice everything's staying the same. All that's changing is the number that's in parentheses. So it's whatever number we're using for x. So -2 squared is 4, and then we multiply by 2, which is 8. 8 times -2 is -16 plus 5. So 8 take away 16 is -8. -8 plus 5 is -3. Then 2 times -1 squared plus 8 times -1 plus 5. Now x is -1. -1 squared is 1. 1 times 2 is 2. 8 times -1 is -8 plus 5. 2 minus 8 is -6. -6 plus 5 is -1. So we put those together. Our point to graph is -1, -1. And then lastly, we're going to plug in 0 for x. 2 times 0 squared plus 8 times 0 plus 5. 0 squared is 0, times 2 is still 0. 8 times 0 is 0 plus 5. So it's 5, and our point then is 0, 5. So let's graph -4, 5, -3, -1, -2, -3, -1, -1, and 0, 5. And there's our parabola. So again, the nice thing about using a table is you can always use a table to graph any type of function. So it will always work. So why don't you guys go ahead and try number 3. So I'll do the first one with you. And then I want you guys to try it so that you'll see if you have any questions. So we're going to be using x squared minus 6x plus 5. And then all the x's are positive, which is nice. So we have y equals x squared. But in this case, first we're going to use 1. So 1 squared minus 6 times x, which we're using right now, 1 plus 5. So 1 squared is 1. -6 times 1 is -6 plus 5. 1 minus 6 is -5. -5 plus 5 is 0. So our point is 1, 0. Okay, go ahead and work on number 3. Finish filling out this table, doing exactly what we did for number 1 and 2, and then we'll go over it. We are on page 94 if you're just joining us. And feel free, if you need help, you can send me questions over in the chat.
I really don't understand this whole thing.
So all you're doing is you're taking this equation, so x squared minus 6x plus 5, and anywhere there's an x, you're plugging in the x value. So
I get that part, but I'm saying like, when you're finding like the answer part, that's the part that confuses me. Like I can get down to like plugging in, but when it comes down to like
so how I'm getting 3, -3, 0, that?
yes, that's the part I get confused with.
So this is just writing it as a point. So the point is written x, comma, y. So the x we were already given, and then we solved, and whatever number we found, that's the y. So it's just putting the x, which was -4, and then the y, which we found, which was +3.
Okay,
And
yeah,
then
so
you have your point.
why? With the y, like is there like a certain pattern you go through for the y value, or is it just?
So to find the y, we're just plugging in the x.
That's confusing because okay, to find the x, that's gonna like for the first one at the very top, it's the -3 and then comma 3. What that means, okay, so I see where you got the x from what on this theory that I gave you the x, but when you go to plug in the y, where are you getting the 3 from? That's what I'm asking.
Where did I get this 3 from?
Yes, I think so. Yes.
By plugging in x. So see,
I know, where are you getting x from?
right here in the table, it told us x is -4. So we took that and we plugged it in for x in our equation, this equation.
Okay.
Does that help, Dakota? Or are you still, feel free, ask away if that still doesn't make sense.
No, it's fine.
Solomon, it's saying it's not letting me message you, but I still see you're on here. But yes, you did it right. What you sent me in the chat, it won't let me reply, but if you're still here, that is correct, what you got for the second point.
Okay, I finished the table, but I'm stuck on the graph.
Okay. So once you do the table, so you're just going to graph all your points. So you said we already know it's -1, 0. And then for this one, you got 2, -3. So that first value is your x value. So you're going to go on the x-axis. X is 1 for this first point. Can you guys see me writing? I think it froze again. Huh? Oh, this thing. I'm going to have to complain. Because this is a new overhead that they just got me and it freezes all the time because I'm writing. Okay, let me close it, unplug it, and open it again. Okay, so now Solomon, once you have the points, you're just graphing the x and then graphing the y. So, and remember, this is just 1 point. So we go where x is -1 and then where y is 0, which is just right here. And then your second point you got, which you sent over, was 2, -3. So you're going to go where x, remember the horizontal is your x-axis. So you're going to go where x is 2. And then you have to go down to where y is -3. So -1, -2, -3. So you're just graphing the points.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Savannah, and I had a question.
Yeah.
So I've been doing it and I've been solving it, and it looks pretty good. The problem is with 4. Can I tell you what I got?
Yeah.
I got 4, and 4 is x, obviously, and then -11. And that's the only one that doesn't match up on my graph because it's not long enough.
Perfect.
So
Which this is going to happen. Yeah, because there's so much calculating that it's easy to make mistakes. So let's plug in 4. I think you just made a calculation error when you were simplifying it.
okay.
So 4 squared minus 6 times 4 plus 5. So 4 squared is 16. And then -6 times 4 is -24. And then plus 5.
I see what I did wrong. I did 8 instead of 16. I had like a
There you
little
go.
like problem there. Okay.
That's an easy mistake to make.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. See, so it's good for you guys to practice and then you have questions to ask. So this is really good. So then we know for 4, we'll just finish this one. 16 minus 24 is -8 plus 5, which is -3. So this point would be 4, -3. For 3, you should have gotten -4. And for 5, it's 0.
It's so cool when they like all line up together and you know that you did it right.
It is, huh? Yes. Awesome. Good, Savannah. That's exactly, yeah. So always be checking. You want to make sure if it doesn't work, because a couple of students had turned it in and there's dots all over the place, but it has to make the parabola shape if you did it correctly. So good.
And what you said like really helped me when you said like it's literally the same, it's mirrored. That really helped because then it's like once you got half of it, you know exactly where it goes and whether or not it's
good
right
thinking.
or wrong.
Yep, very good. Exactly. So yeah, if I say for this one, if I ended up with at 4 like a point down here, if I see that this is my middle, I already know that it's going to be right here. So I can already correct it. You may not have even really had to calculate it again. You can just tell by where all the other points are where it's going to be.
Yeah, and you know at 3 that's when you can finish it by yourself without calculating.
Exactly. Very good. That's right. So automatically I know this one's 2 to the left of my center, so I'm going to go 2 to the right, and that'll finish off my parabola. Exactly. Very good, Savannah. And then number 4, so this one's going to look a little different because our x squared is a negative. So now our parabola it's opening up. Now it's actually going to open down. That negative is going to flip it over. So let's go ahead and see. And we'll kind of use the strategy that Savannah just figured out. We really only need to calculate the first three. So let's plug in 0. So we have negative 0 squared plus 4 times 0 minus 1. 0 squared is 0, so the negative is still 0. 4 times 0 is 0, and negative 1. So 0 plus 0 minus 1 is just negative 1. And then let's plug in 1. So make sure to put your negative there, and then your 1 in the parentheses. Since x is 1, plus 4 times 1 minus 1. So 1 squared is 1, and then we multiply that by our negative. So it's negative 1. So be really careful when you're multiplying. And then 4 times 1 is positive 4 and negative 1. Negative 1 plus 4 is 3. 3 minus 1 is 2. So our next point is 1, 2. And then x is 2, so we'll plug in 2. So 2 squared is 4, and then 4 times negative is negative 4, plus 4 times 2, which is 8, minus 1. Negative 4 plus 8 is positive 4, and then 4 minus 1 is 3. So our point would be 2, 3. So let's start plotting.
Please.
Sorry, what was that? It kind of cut out.
Can you scoot it up a little bit?
Like that?
Yes.
Sure. And then so 0, negative 1. So x is 0. So right here, and then we go down to where y is negative 1. And then x is 1. So we go where x is 1, and then up to where y is 2. And then 2, 3. So x is 2 and y is 1, 2, 3. And just like Savannah said, so we know that third point is our middle. So really, we know that this is going to be our next point, and 2 over, that's going to be our next point.
Yay.
Shortcuts are always good. Saves us a lot of work. Okay, any questions on how to graph quadratic functions with the table?
No.
Okay, so it's already 10:44, and now we're gonna do it. The next one we're gonna do, so I do this first because this is the most painful way. It's the most work to graph a quadratic function, but it works all the time. But now we're gonna do it with factoring, so which speeds up the process a little bit. So let's jump to our notes. If you're still struggling with this, there's 4 practice problems on the back that you can do for practice. If you're understanding it, this is fine. You don't have to do the back page. You can just submit since you came to the live session.
Wait. So on every assignment you don't have to do the back, or is it just this?
For this assignment for today, I'm not going to make you guys do the back. For those of you that came to the live session. This thing, sorry, I have to start it all over again. Okay, so now we are going to graph quadratic functions by factoring. Quadratic by factoring. Okay, I'm just gonna write it all and then we'll talk about it because there's a lot of writing. Okay, so we solve quadratic functions to find the zeros. So zeros is just another word that they like to use for quadratics. That means the x-intercepts. They also like to use the word solutions and the word roots. So anytime you hear them ask for the zeros, the roots, the solutions, they just mean the x-intercept. So we're trying to find where the graph crosses the x-axis. And so we know, just like how we did it with linear functions, that every x-intercept has a y value of 0. Because remember, that's where the graph crosses. We have a graph. If we're looking for the x-intercept, it's wherever the graph, when we did linear, it looked like this. It was wherever it crossed the x-axis, which always meant y is always 0. The y value is always 0. And so it's the same if it's a quadratic. We're going to be finding 2, sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 0 if it never crosses the x-axis. But the same thing stays true. Anytime you're looking for the x-intercept, we always know that the y value is 0. So all we have to do is plug in 0 for y and solve. So say we have y equals x squared plus 3x plus 2. The first thing we're going to do is we need to always plug in 0 for y. So y equals x squared plus 3x plus 2. We're looking for the x-intercepts. So every x-intercept, we know that y is 0. And then we just factor, which we've been doing a lot of. So we have our x squared, we have our 3x, and we have our 2. So what multiplies to give us x squared? And then what multiplies to 2 and adds to 3? That would be 2 and 1. We don't have to worry because a was 1. So x times 2 gives us our 2x. 1 times x gives us our 1x. So those add to our 3x, and then those multiply to give us our 2. So our factors are x plus 1 times x plus 2. So far, really nothing new. So here's the new part. Step 3 is we have to set each factor equal to 0. and solve for x.
Can you pull it up a little?
So these are our two factors. So we know it was 0 equaled x squared plus 3x plus 2. But now we know that 0 equals x plus 1 times x plus 2. So now we're going to separate them. So x plus 1 equals 0. So we're going to take this parentheses and set it equal to 0. And then we're going to take our second parentheses, x plus 2, and set that equal to 0. And then we solve. So we would subtract 1 from both sides, and x equals -1. So our point would be -1. We know that x is -1, and we knew that y was 0 because we plugged in 0 for y. And then we would subtract 2 from both sides. So x equals -2. So then our second point would be -2, 0. So you already know how to factor. That was last unit. So this is really only the new part. So you just have to set each factor equal to 0 and solve, and then write your point. So we know that this parabola crosses the graph at -1, or sorry, crosses the x-axis at -1 and at -2.
Can you move back to the top? I didn't finish writing.
I said that.
Is that good, Dakota?
Yes.
Okay, and then once you're finished copying your notes, we are going to be practicing this on page 96. All right. Okay, so on the assignment, 0's already plugged in for y. So we don't have to worry about doing that. So we can jump to step 2, which is just to factor. So we have n squared, we have n, and we have -20. So n times n gives us our n squared. So what multiplies to -20 and adds to 1? So it's probably going to be 5 and 4. And we need it to add to a positive 1. So then the 4 would need to be negative. N minus 4 and n plus 5. We get 5n, we get -4n. Perfect. Those add to our 1n. And then 5 times -4 multiplies to our -20. So now we have n plus 5 times n minus 4 equals 0. And then we have to do step 3, which is to set each factor equal to 0 and solve for x. So our first factor is n plus 5. That equals 0. And then our second factor, which is n minus 4, set that equal to 0. We subtract 5 from both sides, and n equals -5. So this parabola would cross the x-axis at -5, 0. And then we add 4 to both sides and equals 4. So our second point, oops, would be 4, 0. So we know these 2 points are where this parabola crosses the x-axis.
I got a different way, but I got the same answer. Is it okay if I do it that way?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to do one more with you, and then I'll have you guys try the last 2 on your own. So r squared plus 4r minus 32. So we need to know what multiplies to -32 but adds to 4. So it looks like we're going to need 8 and 4, but we need it to multiply to -32 but add to a positive. So 8 and -4 would add to +4, and 8 times -4 would multiply to -32. So it's +8 and then -4. So we have r minus 4 is our first factor, and r plus 8 is our second factor. And then we're going to set each of our factors equal to 0. R minus 4 equals 0, and r plus 8 equals 0. So we add 4 to both sides, and r equals 4. Subtract 8 from both sides, and r equals -8. So then our points would be 4, 0, and -8, 0. So this graph would cross the x-axis at 4 and at -8. And next week, you'll see that we are going to be able to graph these as well. Okay, go ahead and try number 3 and number 4 on your own so that we can answer any questions before we end.
I think I got number 3.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead and try number 4 too.
Okay. I already finished that one too.
Okay, very good, Dakota. Okay, let's give everyone else a few minutes and then we'll go over them.
I have another Zoom right now, so can I go get on it?
Okay, yep, sure. Just go ahead and finish these 2, Solomon, whenever you can, and then go ahead and upload them.
Okay.
I do have to go to have another meeting.
Okay, go ahead. Yep, if you need to go, feel free to go.
Thank you.
Okay, so for number 3, what did you guys get? So what multiplied to -5 and added to +4? Anyone?
Can I show you how I did it? instead of, I don't know how to do it that way.
So just tell me what you got. So you got X, what?
The answer?
Yes.
I got X.
What were the two factors? Once you
Oh,
factor
okay.
it, and then you factor
Um,
it a different way.
So, can you say it again?
So just what did you get here at this step? So X plus something or minus something times X plus or minus something.
I didn't do it like how you did it. I got it like a in a way like a what's it that says in a like I don't know how to do it the way you did it. I did it like the longer way, like multiplying it through. So I got 1 - 5.
That's right. 1 and -5. I think you want it opposite. So -1 and +5. So your signs just got mixed up. Because if you did it with a -5, it wouldn't add to a +4. It would add to -4.
Okay.
So just switch those signs. But yep, that's exactly right. So X minus 1 and then X plus 5. So that we end up with +4X. So then our factors would be X plus 5 times X minus 1 equals 0. And then we have to set each of those factors equal to 0. So we subtract 5 and X equals -5. So our first point is -5, 0. And then we add 1 to both sides. And our second point is 1, 0.
He's good at them.
Any questions on number 3? Okay, and then so for number 4, we need to know what multiplies to -16 and adds to -6. So what did you guys get? So it's looking like it would be 8 and 2. And since it adds to a -6, the 8 would need to be negative. Yep, thank you, Bella. -8 and 2. So -8 and +2. So k plus 2 times k minus 8 equals 0.
That's the thing I don't understand with that one.
What?
Like, okay, I don't understand because I got the same numbers, but how would you know the sign?
Okay, yes. So it has to add to this number, to the middle number, to -6. So if you do it with a +8 and -2, well, 8 minus 2 is +6. It's not -6. So that's why the 8 has to be negative and the 2 has to be positive. Does that make sense, Dakota?
Yeah, but like I don't understand. Okay,
The,
what it is so
cookie crumble
yeah, I got it.
Are you sure? Okay.
Yes.
So you just want to check that they add to this number and they multiply to this exact number. So the signs and everything. So then we just set them equal to 0. So k equals -2. So the first x-intercept is -2, 0. Then we add 8 to both sides. K equals 8. So our second one is 8, 0. Okay, so it's 11:05. So if you didn't get the invite from me yesterday to stay to work on next week's or last week's assignments, you're free to go. Thank you guys for coming. I will see you guys next week. And go ahead. I want you guys to Why don't you guys just do like the odds on the back? You don't have to do all of them, but I want you to get some practice still with factoring and solving. I'll see you guys next week.